Please don't die on me. Elena's hands trembled as blood seeped through the makeshift bandages she'd torn from her own shirt. The stranger's breathing came in shallow gasps, his face pale as moonlight against the dark pavement. Rain hammered her back, but she couldn't move him. Not yet, not until the bleeding stopped. "Stay with me," she whispered, pressing harder against the wound in his side. "Whatever happened to you, whoever did this, it doesn't matter right now. Just breathe." His eyes fluttered open, dark and unfocused. When they found hers, something shifted in his expression. Not gratitude, recognition. As if he knew her, though she was certain they'd never met. "You shouldn't," he managed, voice barely audible above the storm. "You shouldn't help me. Everyone deserves help." Elena's nursing instincts kicked in, checking his pulse, assessing the damage. 3 knife wounds, possibly internal bleeding, definitely going into shock. "Can you tell me your name?" "Dante," he breathed, then his eyes rolled back. Elena made a split-second decision that would change everything. She couldn't get him to a hospital. Not in this storm, not with wounds that looked deliberately inflicted. Someone had tried to kill this man, and hospitals meant questions, police reports, investigations. Something in his warning, in those knowing eyes, told her he couldn't afford official attention. "Hey there, my wonderful friend. How's your day going? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this story so far. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from." 30 minutes later, Elena had somehow managed to drag Dante up 2 flights of stairs to her modest apartment. Her neighbor Mrs. Patterson had poked her head out, asking about the noise, but Elena had mumbled something about helping a drunk friend. The lie came too easily. Now, under the harsh fluorescent light of her kitchen, she could see the extent of his injuries. Professional knife work. Precise, meant to cause maximum damage without immediate death. Torture, not murder. At least not yet. As she cleaned the wounds, she noticed something odd. The man's hands, even unconscious and bleeding out, bore calluses in strange places. Not from manual labor, but from something else entirely. And there, partially hidden beneath his torn shirt, was a tattoo she didn't recognize. An intricate design that seemed almost like a family crest. "What kind of trouble are you in, Dante?" she whispered, threading her needle. Outside, through her thin apartment walls, she heard the distant sound of cars prowling the streets. Engines running slow, like they were searching for something. Or someone. Elena's phone buzzed. A text from her sister. "Saw the news about that shooting downtown. You working tonight? Stay safe." Shooting downtown. Elena glanced at Dante's wounds again, then at the clock. The timing matched perfectly. Her hands stilled on the needle. What if she hadn't just saved an innocent victim? What if she'd brought something dangerous into her home? Something that would destroy the quiet, predictable life she'd built for herself. But as she looked at his face, peaceful in unconsciousness, she pushed the doubt away. He was hurt and she was a nurse. That was all that mattered. At least, that's what she told herself as she continued stitching, unaware that every careful stitch was binding her fate to the most dangerous man in the city. Elena jerked awake to the sound of groaning. Sunlight streamed through her blinds, and for a moment she forgot why she was sleeping in a chair beside her kitchen table. Then she saw him. Dante, trying to sit up despite the fresh stitches. "Don't move," she said, rushing to steady him. "You'll tear everything open." His eyes found hers, clearer now but guarded. "Why did you help me?" "Because you needed help." Elena checked his bandages, relieved to see no fresh bleeding. "How do you feel?" "Like I've been stabbed 3 times. A ghost of a smile crossed his lips. "Thank you. I know it was dangerous." Elena felt heat creep up her neck. There was something about his voice, the way he looked at her like she was precious rather than foolish. Everyone would have done the same thing. "No," Dante said quietly. "They wouldn't have." Elena's phone rang, making her jump. The caller ID showed Street Point Mary's Hospital. "I have to take this," she said, stepping into the living room. "Elena here." "Elena, thank God." It was Dr. Marcus Webb, her supervisor and ex-boyfriend. I heard about the downtown incident. Are you okay? Elena glanced toward the kitchen where Dante was listening intently despite her lowered voice. I'm fine, Marcus. Why wouldn't I be? Because 3 gang members were found dead last night, and there's blood trail leading from the scene. Police are checking hospitals for anyone with knife wounds. Marcus's voice carried that familiar note of concern that used to make her feel protected. Now it felt suffocating. Elena, if someone comes to you, someone hurt, you call the police first. Promise me. I know hospital protocol, Marcus. This isn't about protocol. It's about you having a hero complex that's going to get you killed someday. Elena's grip tightened on the phone. Marcus had always criticized her for caring too much, for bringing home strays, for working extra shifts in the trauma unit because she couldn't bear to see suffering. He'd called it a flaw, this compulsion to save everyone, even when it hurt her. I have to go, she said, hanging up before he could respond. When she returned to the kitchen, Dante was studying her face. Boyfriend, ex-boyfriend, and my supervisor. Elena busied herself preparing breakfast, avoiding his penetrating stare. He thinks I care too much about people. Is he right? Elena set down the coffee pot harder than necessary. Would you rather I'd left you bleeding in the street? No. Dante's voice was soft. But he's not wrong about the danger. Before Elena could respond, a sharp knock echoed through the apartment. Both of them froze. Elena moved toward the door, but Dante caught her wrist. Don't answer it, he whispered. Another knock, more insistent. Elena. It's Mrs. Patterson from next door. Elena looked at Dante's tense expression, the way his free hand had moved instinctively toward where a weapon might be concealed. She's just my neighbor. Elena, dear, there are some men outside asking about strangers in the building. Thought you should know. Elena's blood turned to ice. Through the peephole, she could see Mrs. Patterson's worried face. But beyond her, shadows moved in the hallway. The elderly woman wasn't alone. Dante was already moving, ignoring his injuries as he grabbed Elena's hand. Is there another way out? The fire escape, but nothing. His grip was firm but gentle. Trust me, Elena. Those men aren't police. Elena found herself nodding, though every rational part of her mind screamed that she was making a terrible mistake. But something in Dante's eyes, not just fear, but a fierce protectiveness directed at her, made her want to trust him. As they crept toward her bedroom window, Elena realized that Marcus was right about one thing. Her need to save people was going to destroy her life. She just hadn't expected it to feel like the most alive she'd ever been. Elena's hands shook as she unlatched her bedroom window. The fire escape was rusted 20 feet above the alley, and Dante could barely stand. This was insane. Elena, please answer the door. Mrs. Patterson's voice carried a tremor now. These gentlemen just want to ask a few questions. Through the thin walls, Elena heard a deeper voice. We know someone was hurt last night. We're just trying to find our friend. Dante's jaw clenched. That's Vincent Romano. He's not looking for a friend. Who is he? Elena whispered, helping Dante toward the window. Someone whose brother I killed last night. Elena stopped breathing. The room spun as the full weight of what she'd done crashed down on her. She hadn't saved an innocent victim. She'd harbored a killer. A murderer was bleeding on her kitchen table, and she'd stitched him back together with her own hands. You're scared, Dante said, reading her expression. You should be. Did you? Elena's voice cracked. Did you murder someone? 3 someones. Dante's honesty was brutal. But they murdered my nephew first. He was 8 years old, Elena. 8. The words hit her like physical blows. Child. These weren't random gang killings. This was a war with innocent casualties. Let me go, Dante said quietly. Walk away. Tell them you never saw me. Elena stared at him. She could do exactly that. Open the door, claim ignorance, return to her safe, predictable life. Marcus would be proud. Her sister would never have to worry. Mrs. Patterson would be safe. But an 8-year-old boy was dead, and the man who'd tried to avenge him was bleeding because of her medical care. "No," Elena said, surprising herself. "Elena. No." She moved to the window with sudden determination. "If they killed a child, then you were right to stop them." The apartment door splintered open just as Elena and Dante reached the fire escape. Footsteps thundered through her home, her sanctuary, destroying everything in their search. "She's not here, but the blood trail leads to this window," a voice called. Elena pressed against the brick wall, her heart hammering so hard she was certain it would give them away. Dante's arm came around her waist, pulling her closer, and despite everything, the danger, the revelation, the complete destruction of her life, she felt safer than she had in years. "Check the alley." Vincent Romano's voice was gravelly tired. "My brother's body isn't even cold yet, and this bastard already has someone helping him." Elena's phone buzzed. A text from her sister Sarah. "Coming over tonight with Chinese food and wine. Need to tell you something important." Elena's blood turned to ice. Sarah would walk straight into this nightmare. Without thinking, she started to text back a warning, but Dante caught her hand. "They'll trace your phone," he whispered. "My sister." "I know." His eyes held hers with unexpected tenderness. "I won't let anything happen to her." Below them, car doors slammed. Elena risked a glance down and saw 3 black SUVs surrounding the building. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about sending a message. "Elena Rodriguez." Vincent Romano's voice echoed up from the alley. "I know you're listening. You saved the wrong man's life. Now you're going to help me find him, or everyone you care about will pay for your mistake." Elena felt Dante tense beside her. "How does he know my name?" "Your neighbor talked," Dante said grimly. "Which means they know where you work, where your family lives, everything." The full scope of what she'd triggered hit Elena like a physical blow. By saving one man, she'd painted a target on everyone she loved. Sarah, Marcus, even Mrs. Patterson. All of them were in danger because of her compulsion to help. But as she looked at Dante's face, seeing not just the dangerous man who'd killed 3 people, but the grieving uncle who'd lost a nephew, she realized she'd already made her choice. The moment she'd pulled him from that street, she'd committed to this path. "What do we do now?" she whispered. Dante's hand found hers, his thumb tracing over her knuckles. "Now we run. Together." The word "together" sent heat spiraling through Elena's chest, even as terror froze her blood. She was no longer just a nurse who'd helped a stranger. She was an accomplice, a target, and something else entirely. Something that made her pulse race when Dante looked at her like she was worth fighting for. "Elena!" Vincent's voice boomed again. "You have 1 hour to bring him to me, or I start with your sister." Elena closed her eyes, knowing that when she opened them, her old life would be completely gone. When she opened them, Dante was waiting, ready to catch her as she fell into his dangerous world. Elena and Dante made it 3 blocks before the sirens started wailing. They'd climbed down the fire escape into chaos, police cordoning off her building, neighbors gathered on the sidewalk whispering about the nice nurse who'd apparently harbored a fugitive. Elena's entire life was being dissected in real time, and there was no going back. Now they crouched in the supply closet of an abandoned warehouse, Elena's nursing bag the only thing between Dante and bleeding out again. His stitches had torn during their escape, and his face was growing pale. "This isn't working," Elena whispered, pressing fresh gauze to his side. "You need real medical attention. Can't risk a hospital." Dante's breathing was labored. "Vincent has people everywhere." Elena's phone buzzed with another text from Sarah. "Police at your building. What's happening? Call me now." "I have to warn her," Elena said, but Dante caught her wrist. "They're monitoring everything. The moment you make contact, they'll trace it back to her." Elena felt trapped, suffocating. Every choice led to disaster. Save Dante and her sister dies. Contact Sarah and they're both dead. Do nothing, and everyone she loved would pay for her decision to help a stranger. There's something else, Dante said quietly. Something you need to know about why they want me dead. Besides murdering Vincent's brother, I didn't just kill him, Elena. I stole something from him first. Something worth $50 million that belonged to my family. Elena's hands stilled. What kind of something? Information. Bank accounts, safe house locations, the names of every corrupt cop and politician in Vincent's pocket. Dante's eyes met hers. Evidence that could destroy half the city's power structure. Where is it? Hidden somewhere only I know. Which means as long as I'm alive, Vincent can't access his empire or protect himself from prosecution. Dante coughed, specks of blood on his lips. That's why they're not just trying to kill me, Elena. They're trying to torture the location out of me first. Elena realized with growing horror that she wasn't just protecting a man. She was protecting information that could topple criminal empires. The stakes weren't just personal anymore. They were political, financial, dangerous in ways she couldn't even comprehend. Her phone rang. Marcus. Don't answer, Dante warned, but Elena was already sliding her finger across the screen. Marcus. Elena, thank God. Listen to me very carefully. I know where you are. Elena's blood turned to ice. What? I tracked your phone. There's a SWAT team moving on your location in 10 minutes. I can get you out, but you have to trust me. Elena looked at Dante, whose expression had turned deadly. He was shaking his head, mouthing no. But Marcus was still talking. There's a service tunnel beneath the warehouse. Northeast corner behind the old boiler. It leads to the subway maintenance area. I'll be waiting there with a car. Marcus, how do you know about? Elena, there's no time. Move now or you're both dead. The line went dead. Elena stared at her phone, mind racing. Marcus had found her location when even she wasn't sure where they were. He knew about service tunnels in abandoned buildings. He was offering help that seemed too convenient, too perfectly timed. It's a trap, Dante said quietly. You don't know Marcus. I know men who claim to protect you while controlling you. Dante struggled to his feet. Elena, think. How did your ex-boyfriend know exactly where we'd run? How did he know about tunnels most city workers don't even know exist? Elena's mind rebelled against the possibility, but the pieces were falling into place with sickening clarity. Marcus's concern about her hero complex. His intimate knowledge of her whereabouts. His calls at exactly the right moments. He's been watching me, she whispered. More than that. He's been reporting on you. Outside, engines rumbled closer. Elena could hear radio chatter, tactical teams coordinating their approach. Marcus had given them maybe 5 minutes before the building would be surrounded. The tunnel he mentioned, Elena said slowly. It's real, but it doesn't lead to subway maintenance. Where does it lead? To the old hospital morgue. 3 blocks away. Elena's nursing knowledge of the city's infrastructure was finally useful for something other than finding shortcuts to work. But Marcus wouldn't know that unless he's been planning this for a while. Elena's phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. Elena, Marcus called me. Said you're in trouble and I should meet him downtown. He's coming to get me now. Elena's world collapsed. The betrayal was complete. Marcus wasn't just hunting them. He was using her sister as bait, knowing Elena would sacrifice anything to protect Sarah. He has my sister, Elena breathed. Dante's hand found hers, surprisingly gentle despite the calluses she'd noticed. Then we go get her. This is insane. You can barely stand, we're surrounded by police, and now the man I trusted is. Elena's voice broke. God, I've destroyed everything. No. Dante's voice was fierce. You saved me when no one else would. You chose to trust me over a man who's been lying to you for months. You're not the one who destroyed anything, Elena. Elena looked into his dark eyes and saw something that terrified her more than Vincent Romano or corrupt police or manhunts. She saw a future she wanted. This dangerous man, this criminal who'd killed 3 people and stolen $50 million. He looked at her like she was brave instead of foolish. Like her compulsion to save people was a strength, not a flaw. "If we do this," she said quietly, "if we go after Sarah, there's no going back to my old life." "There was no going back the moment you pulled me off that street," Dante replied. "The question is, are you ready to fight for the life you choose instead of the life others choose for you?" Elena's phone rang again. Marcus, calling to check if she'd taken his bait. This time she didn't answer. This time, she chose Dante's dangerous honesty over Marcus's protective lies. This time she chose to fight. Elena's plan seemed perfect in its simplicity. Use the morgue tunnels to reach the hospital, access Marcus's location through the staff system, and rescue Sarah before anyone realized they'd escaped the warehouse. For the first time since this nightmare began, she felt in control. That confidence lasted exactly 12 minutes. Elena and Dante emerged from the tunnels into St. Mary's basement morgue, where Elena's keycard still worked. The familiar antiseptic smell should have been comforting, but instead it felt like walking into a tomb. Elena pulled up Marcus's location on the staff tracking system. He was in the pediatric wing, 3rd floor. "That's strange," Elena murmured. "Why would he take Sarah there?" "Does it matter?" Dante leaned heavily against the wall, his face gray with pain. "Let's get your sister and get out." Elena hesitated. Something felt wrong, but her desperate need to save Sarah overrode every instinct. They took the service elevator to the 3rd floor, avoiding the main corridors where security cameras would catch them. The pediatric wing after hours was eerily quiet, soft nightlights casting long shadows. Elena led Dante toward Marcus's location, but as they rounded the corner, she froze. Through the window of the children's playroom, she could see Sarah sitting calmly at a small table, sipping coffee and talking with Marcus like they were old friends. Not hostage and captor, collaborators. "Elena." Dante's voice was tight with warning. "We need to leave. Now." But Elena was already pushing through the door, her nursing badge granting access everywhere in the hospital she'd called home for 3 years. "Sarah." Elena's voice cracked with confusion. Her sister looked up with what Elena now recognized as practiced surprise. "Elena. Thank God you're safe." Sarah stood, moving toward her with arms outstretched, but Elena stepped back. "What are you doing here? How did Marcus?" "I called him," Sarah said simply. "When I saw the news about the shooting downtown, I was worried about you. Marcus has been helping me keep track of your episodes." "Episodes?" Marcus stood, his expression a mixture of concern and disappointment that Elena now realized she'd seen dozens of times before. "Elena, you've been displaying increasingly reckless behavior for months, taking on extra trauma shifts, bringing home injured animals, that incident where you nearly got fired for treating a gang member without reporting it to police." Elena's world tilted. "You've been watching me. Both of you." "We've been worried about you," Sarah said gently. "This compulsion to save everyone who's hurt, it's not normal, Elena. It's dangerous. And now you've proven our point," Marcus added, his gaze shifting to Dante. "You've harbored a wanted criminal. A murderer." Elena felt everything she thought she knew about herself crumbling. Her own sister and the man she'd once loved had been monitoring her, treating her like a patient instead of a person. Worse, they weren't wrong. Her need to save people had led her to this moment, bleeding in a hospital corridor with a killer by her side. "The police are already on their way," Marcus continued. "Elena, you can still walk away from this. We can get you help, real psychological help, and—" "No." Dante's voice cut through the room like a blade. "She's not sick. She's the only person in this whole damn city who sees someone bleeding and helps instead of walking away." "You don't get to speak," Sarah snapped, her composed mask slipping. "You're the reason my sister's life is ruined." Elena watched the exchange with growing horror as she realized the truth. Sarah wasn't just worried, she was angry. Angry that Elena had chosen to help a stranger instead of living the safe, predictable life Sarah thought she should have. How long? Elena asked quietly. What? Sarah's defensive tone confirmed Elena's worst fears. How long have you been reporting on me to Marcus? How long have you both been treating me like I'm broken? The silence stretched too long. Finally Marcus answered. Since you started working trauma. Since you began taking risks that could get you killed. Elena felt something die inside her chest. Not just trust, her entire identity as someone who helped people. Because everyone she'd ever helped, everyone she'd ever saved, had been watched and catalogued as evidence of her mental instability. Elena. Dante's hand found hers, warm and steady. Look at me. She turned to face him, this dangerous man who'd never once made her feel like she needed to be fixed. Your sister and your ex-boyfriend think saving people is a disease, Dante said quietly. I think it's the only thing in this world worth being. Footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. Multiple sets, moving with tactical precision. The police had arrived, just as Marcus promised. Elena had seconds to decide. Surrender to the people who claimed to love her but wanted to change her, or fight alongside the man who accepted exactly who she was. Elena, please, Sarah begged. Come with us. Let us help you. Elena looked at her sister, really looked at her, and saw not love but pity. Sarah didn't want to save Elena. She wanted to save herself from the embarrassment of having a sister who cared too much. I'm not broken, Elena said, her voice growing stronger. And I'm not going with you. She turned toward Dante, ready to face whatever came next, but froze when she saw Vincent Romano step through the playroom's second entrance, gun drawn. Finally, Vincent said with satisfaction. Thank you, Dr. Webb. Your information was very helpful. Elena's blood turned to ice as the final betrayal revealed itself. Marcus hadn't just been monitoring her. He'd been working with Vincent Romano all along. Marcus. Elena's voice was barely a whisper. I'm sorry, Elena, Marcus said, but his tone held no regret. But $50 million buys a lot of cooperation. Even from doctors. Elena realized with crushing finality that her need to save people hadn't just endangered everyone she loved. It had been used as a weapon against her. Her own compassion had become the trap that would destroy her and Dante both. But as Vincent raised his gun toward Dante, Elena made a choice that had nothing to do with saving anyone and everything to do with love. She stepped between them. Elena, don't. Dante's warning came too late. Elena stood between Vincent Romano's gun and the man she'd chosen to trust. Her heart hammering but her voice steady. You want the information he stole? Then you'll have to go through me. Vincent's laugh was cold. Gladly. But Elena wasn't the same woman who'd found a bleeding stranger 3 days ago. That woman had saved people because she couldn't bear to see suffering. This woman was saving someone because she couldn't bear to lose him. The information isn't just hidden, Elena said, her nursing training kicking in as she noticed Vincent's trembling hands, the slight yellowing of his eyes. Dante gave it to me before we came here. Insurance policy. Vincent's gun wavered. You're lying. Am I? Elena stepped closer, recognizing the symptoms she'd seen in dozens of patients. How long since your last dialysis, Vincent? Your hands are shaking, you're jaundiced. And you're sweating despite the air conditioning. You're in kidney failure. Elena, what are you doing? Marcus demanded, but she ignored him. You need medical treatment within the next few hours, or you'll go into complete renal shutdown, Elena continued, her voice carrying the authority of someone who'd spent years in trauma medicine. And I'm the only person in this room qualified to help you. Vincent's gun hand was definitely trembling now. I don't need. Look at your fingernails, Vincent. See how they're turning blue. That's cyanosis. Your organs are shutting down. Elena took another step forward. I can save your life. But only if you lower the gun. She's buying time, Marcus said sharply. Vincent, just shoot them both and... Shut up, Vincent snapped, his desperation finally showing. You didn't tell me about any medical conditions. Because you didn't ask, Elena said smoothly. You were so focused on revenge for your brother that you ignored your own body's warning signs. How long since you've slept? Really slept? Elena could see Vincent warring with himself. His need for vengeance against his need to survive. She pressed her advantage. The $50 million won't matter if you're dead, Vincent. And neither will revenge. But I can keep you alive long enough to get proper treatment. That's what I do. I save people who are dying. Don't trust her, Sarah said desperately. Elena, you can't save everyone. You can't fix everyone. Elena turned to look at her sister, seeing clearly for the first time how small Sarah's world really was. You're right, Sarah. Can't save everyone. But I can save the people I choose to save. Vincent's gun lowered slightly. What do you want in exchange? Safe passage out of the city for Dante and me. And you leave my family alone. All of them, even the ones who betrayed me. Elena, Dante said quietly. You don't have to. Yes, I do. Elena's voice was firm. This is who I am, Dante. Not broken, not sick, just someone who believes people deserve second chances. Even you, Vincent. Even after what you've done. For a moment, the room was silent except for Vincent's labored breathing. Then he lowered his gun completely. Help me, he said simply. Elena moved with practiced efficiency, checking Vincent's pulse, assessing his condition. As she worked, she spoke to the room. Marcus, call for an ambulance. Sarah, there's a dialysis unit on the 4th floor. We need to get him there immediately. Elena, Marcus said hesitantly. You're still wanted by police. If you help him. Then I help him, Elena said without looking up. The police can arrest me later. Right now, someone needs a doctor. As Elena stabilized Vincent, she felt Dante's eyes on her. When she glanced up, she saw not admiration or gratitude, but something deeper, recognition. He saw her exactly as she was. Flawed, stubborn, impossibly caring, and completely unashamed of it. 20 minutes later, Vincent Romano was stable and being prepped for emergency dialysis. The police had arrived but were keeping their distance while medical procedures continued. Elena had bought them time but not much. The information, Vincent said weakly as they wheeled him toward treatment. You never had it, did you? Elena smiled. No. But you needed to believe I did. Vincent actually laughed. Smart woman. Dante's lucky to have you. No, Dante said, taking Elena's hand as police moved to arrest them both. I'm the lucky one. 6 months later. Elena finished her shift at the free clinic in Portland, Oregon, a city where nobody knew about the nurse who'd harbored a mafia boss. Her hands were steady as she updated patient files, no longer shaking with the fear that had followed her for weeks after the trial. Dante had pleaded guilty to the murders in exchange for Elena's immunity. Vincent Romano, recovered and facing his own trial, had corroborated Elena's story about acting under duress. The $50 million in stolen information had been turned over to federal authorities, bringing down half of the city's corrupt officials, including several who'd been pressuring hospitals to ignore certain patients. Elena's phone buzzed with a text. Visiting day approved for next week. Can't wait to see you. D. She smiled, remembering her last conversation with Sarah. Her sister had been horrified that Elena refused to come home and get help. But Elena was finally home, in a place where her compulsion to save people was valued, not pathologized. Where helping a bleeding stranger wasn't seen as mental illness, but as simple human decency. Elena. Her colleague interrupted her thoughts. There's someone outside asking for help. Says he's hurt but won't go to the hospital. Elena looked out the clinic window and saw a young man leaning against a car, blood seeping through his shirt. For a moment she hesitated. Then she grabbed her medical bag and headed for the door. Some things never change. And Elena was finally okay with that. As she approached the stranger, she whispered the same words she'd said to Dante that stormy night. Everyone deserves help. This time she knew exactly what she was choosing. And she chose it anyway. Thank you for experiencing Elena and Dante's story. Sometimes the greatest act of love is seeing someone exactly as they are, flaws and all, and choosing them anyway.